Good morning. Today, for Echo Voices, we have Therapy Box's Rebecca Bright. She is the co-founder of Therapy Box, and she is joined by Annie Galvin. She's a project manager at Therapy Box and has been there for several years. They're going to be talking about gamifying therapy, and I'm excited to welcome them. Rebecca's been here with us once before, so welcome back, Rebecca and Annie. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give it over to you.
Thank you. Okay. So I'll start by talking through VocaQuest, and then I think Rebecca's going to take over and talk through a couple of our other apps at the end. So VocaQuest is a speech and language therapy platform. So it includes a bunch of resources. There's almost 6,000 different activities covering over 10 different therapy approaches. There is automated progress tracking, things like reports. You can set goals. Yeah, so that's a brief overview of what it is. You can download it on iPad and web. So there's a few different options. Um, but to start with, yeah, I think I've covered this one. So Rebecca. So starting with the activities. So our activity library includes loads of different tasks and games in order to keep clients entertained. So we have 6 different colourful semantics games, speech sound flashcards, which are all prepped and ready with all of the content for those. Um, Preposition scenes where you drag items onto the scenes in the correct position to practice those prepositions. Semantic association, cycles approach, more. There's a few games that you can pair these with. So we have coloring, where you color in a shape and then answer a question to complete the picture. A snakes and ladders board game. So after each question, you move up the board until you complete it. There's a spinner, which helps gamify it. There's things like word searches and stuff like that as well. So it's quite varied. There's a lot to do to try and make sure that speech and language therapy doesn't get boring or dull. All of these are available as the digital activities, so on our web platform or iPad app, and also as printables. There are a few that aren't available as printables, but most of them are. So in whatever way you choose to conduct that therapy, the option is there. So there's a few videos of the different games so that you can get an idea of what those are. So this is the board game. I think this is a plurals task. So you roll the dice and it will bring up a question to be completed. And then we'll move you up the board as you go. Sorry. Then colouring. So this is a flashcard activity. I think practicing BL, words beginning with BL. So you choose a colour on the right hand side, press on the image to colour in where you want, and then there'll be a question or a flashcard for you to practice. This is preposition scenes that I was talking about earlier. So there's an image, an instruction, and you drag the image to the right location to complete it. I think there's one more video. And this is one of our colourful semantics activities. So to practice sentence building, so there's an image And for the who, doing, what, and where words, you drag in the correct answer from the cards at the bottom. So that's just a idea of some of the activities that are available. Then this is a screenshot of my account. So there is automated progress tracking. So you can set up goals for certain clients. So this is our initial goal. And then all of our activities are tagged with what they practice. So as you do activities which cover that goal, we'll automatically track the progress on the graph on the right-hand side. You can change the accuracy target. It's automatically set to 80%. So once the client gets 80% 3 times, I think in a row, that will be achieved. And then there's a certificate which you can sort of download to achieve that goal. You can set as many as you want, and if the goal that you're looking for isn't available, there is also the option for you to set up a goal of your own, which won't be automatically tracked, but you can track it manually if you need. So there's flexibility there. We also have a client dashboard. So for each practitioner login, you get, I think it's 30 clients available on your caseload. And for each client that you create on that caseload, they will get their own login. So it goes to a different UI. So it's much more child friendly, as you can see. And all of the activities that you have listed on their therapy plan will be displayed. So this is nice if you want to set homework. The client can just keep working through work that you've set for them. You will get the reports back on your login so you can see how they've been doing. And they will never run out of activities because we will keep suggesting activities which align with the goals that you've set up or the activities that you have added to their therapy plan. They will also be able to see all of their certificates from here and things like that. So that's the client login. We also have VocaQuest Studio. So if the 5,000 activities that we have aren't enough, or you want to personalize them, customize them to the client, I think almost all of our therapy approaches are able to be customized. So you can import our activities and make slight edits. So if you can't find a text-to-speech voice that pronounces the words correctly, you can add audio recordings of your own if you have an accent, for example. You can also start completely from scratch. So you can create themed activities and things like that. All of our images and symbols are available to be used for that. This is an example of a colourful semantics sorting activity that I was building. So that is VocaQuest Studio. As I mentioned earlier, it's available as a web platform and on iPad. You do have to purchase so iPad is available as an in-app subscription. You will then be able to log into web with that account once you've paid and unlocked it. For if you just want to use web, if you contact us, we're able to provide that through a purchase order. So one account can be used for both devices. I think that's me covering VocaQuest very quickly. Is there any questions at this point about VocaQuest before Rebecca moves on to some of our other apps?
And I was just going to chime in and say, so behind the scenes in VocaQuest, there's a whole library of images and symbols and also words. So for example, if you wanted to do we call it snakes and ladders, chutes and ladders, and you wanted to work on initial S, for example, You could pull a deck of cards that we've already got, and you can play that with Chutes and Ladders, but you can also then set homework where somebody does it as a colouring activity. And if the family didn't have access at home to technology, that could be a printable, and you could send it home with the child, or they could do it remotely. That would be fine. You're able to customize all of that content as well, as Annie said, in Studio. So one of the nice things I think is that then that can be in any language, and that's often been the case for people who I think are using Studio at the moment. They're creating content in Spanish, for example, or they're creating bilingual content, to use with their caseload. So there's quite a lot of flexibility, and really the aim is that the games are an avenue to access the materials and a means of making that quite fun and gamifying it. So there's, as Annie said, Chutes and Ladders, spinners, there's a memory game, there's all sorts of fun things apart from some of the more direct therapy layouts that we've seen as well. So it's really designed to be customizable and to enable you to do multiple repetitions, say, for example, speech sound work, where each time probably feels different because the game has changed, but you could be really drilling that same content over and over if you wanted to. So you've got quite a lot of flexibility in that regard. And then there are some more structured approaches like the semantic associations or the semantic feature analysis, the preposition scenes that you saw with Annie, and we saw the colourful semantics approach, which is really widely used in the UK, which is a semantics-based approach to sentence building, where each part of the sentences are colour-coded, is colour-coded, so who is coloured one colour and where another. And so we have a whole setup of different games you can play in that regard as well. So there's language content, and there's also quite a lot of speech content. And you were listening to it in British English, but you can also switch it over, and the voices will all be in US English as well. So that's another thing to bear in mind. But I can have a look at this question in the chat, perhaps. Okay. So Annie, I don't know whether at all the other option would be if you can able to share the vocal question, we can just have a look at some of the options before I go into seen and heard, or I can go through seen and heard, and then we can come back at the end and just do a little whistle stop tour, perhaps. Oops, sorry.
I'm back to get it set up in the background.
Sorry, I've got 3 windows open at once, so I'm moving around. Let me go back. Let me close this. Okay. So in the meantime, I can talk to you a little about Seen and Heard Pro, which is what I, if you were here last time, I spoke to you a little bit about, and I just wanted to talk to you about what was new in Seen and Heard Pro. So Seen and Heard Pro is the new version of Seen and Heard, which came out originally in 2013, and it's a visual scene display approach to AAC. It's really the heart of Seen and Heard is the idea that you can take a photo and make it interactive using hotspots that are then tappable and can either play a message or can link to another activity or action. And when we launched Seen and Heard Pro, which was at the very end of 2023, so 10 years after Seen and Heard came out, we launched with a whole lot of new features. But in the sort of it must be 18 months since then, and since I would have spoken to you about it, there's a whole lot of new features that we've also rolled out. So there's quite a lot that we're able to do, which is based on feedback that we've had from people using it, either AAC professionals or families and children who were using it, and things that would be helpful. So really, Seen and Heard Pro has evolved to become a toolkit of things that you can use alongside visual scene displays, either within it itself or as features that really seem to, augment the visual scene approach. So, for example, on the screen at the minute, one of the brand new features that came out this year is the ability to add a choice option. So when you tap on the hotspot, the new option is that you can also have a choice. So if you would, somebody was choosing between slide or the swings in the playground, you're able to support them to do that. We have a whole range of scene types that are available. So with visual scene displays, obviously the image scene is probably the one that most people are familiar with. And really the idea is that, again, that you take the photo and add hotspots. In this example from the market, for example, I might put hotspots on the things that I want to talk about here. That might be things I want to buy or want to ask a question about. I've got that flexibility to put those everywhere. And the idea really is about doing it on the fly and to be able to, do it just before I reach the market or the supermarket. Or if it's somewhere that I'm going to go to regularly, I could have this scene set up and save it in one of my folders to then access each time I went to that supermarket, assuming things are fairly predictable as to where they're located, for example. So that's an image scene, and you can save those, as you can see on the image scene, you can fit them into folders to organize them. And so you can manage the folders as well. And that whole drawer retracts so that the person using seen and heard doesn't need to interact with that if they don't need to. But that's how all the scenes are stored and how you can navigate to find the scene that you need or the other features within the app. So that's the image scene. We also have video visual scene displays. So that's the example in the top right corner. And in this case, you're able to use video. And then within the duration of the video, you identify opportunities for where you would like to insert a scene. So for example, that might be, to stop and and support conversation or questions. But it's also used quite a bit, I think, in terms of developing skills for independence and for supporting people to do that. And so down the bottom then sit any available static scenes, which are really frozen snippets from the video that you've got. So the video plays, you pause, it shows the static scene. You can access the communication opportunities that are embedded in the hotspots on that scene. The video continues on, and then the next scene comes if you've got more than one in there as well. And you can add more. You can add scenes in as you go along. Or, for example, you might be using these scenes to really scaffold an activity or scaffold some skills. So you're able to then potentially gradually reduce the number of scenes that you have in that temporal order in your video visual scene as well. So the examples I've seen largely are around independent skills or around supporting communication in workplace training, for example, for people with learning disabilities or in that manner. But really, I think that's just where the examples have come from and where the evidence base is. And this the video visual scene work came specifically out of work we did with the RERC on AAC, and particularly the work that David McNaughton was doing. So that's where the video visual scenes have come through from. The third type of scene you can have is a grid-based scene, and that's pretty much as it sounds and as it looks. So you're able to set up a grid of columns and rows, and then use either the photos that we have in there. You can use the images from the scenes themselves, and you can use other images that you want to use as well, and set up a grid. And as they operate a bit like hotspots, because then you can attach audio to that. That can be either recorded or text-to-speech audio. You could link to another scene. You could add a video. You could add the transition to literacy feature. You could add a timeout. You can add all of the things that you can add to a hotspot in a visual scene. You're able to add to a grid scene as well. And then, as you can probably guess, a hybrid is a bit of both. So it's a big visual scene in the middle, and then you have the option to place cells on any of the borders, or all of the borders of that scene. So as you can see, in this case, we've gone for content on each of the four borders of the scene, but it could be, for example, just down the bottom or on one of the sides. So you've got flexibility with that, and as to how many other content opportunities you want to place around that. So sometimes this is a good example, because obviously the colors aren't discretely represented within the photo themselves, and so we've added them around the outside as well. And actually, just to note on this one, this is an example of where one of the hotspots has a text label too. So that's another option actually that I forgot, that you can add to a hotspot as well. So you have that available to you as well. Another feature that we've added in to Seen and Heard Pro is the visual timetable. And this is quite a useful way to either schedule scenes that you want across the week, or to help someone work through the structure of their day. And you can view it either in a day view, or in here you've got it in a week view. You're able to check them off once you've completed the tasks. And so what you could do, if you had, for example, a toothbrushing scene, you could schedule that across 8 o'clock every day of the week if you wanted to. Lunch might be at 12 every day. You're able to pop that in as you want, or if there are days that are more specific or different, then you might put it as a single day as well. So you have that ability to adjust and edit the visual timetable. And when you tap on those, if the items are scenes, you tap on them and they travel through to the scene that you've set up specifically for that particular time on your visual timetable. So that's quite useful as well. And then another option you have, which is really designed to support somebody who's using Seen and Heard Pro in different ways. So instead of using the folder structure that you saw on the visual scenes, you can also set up communication books, and these can then be exported out to print or to save, or to have as a low-tech version of your digital Seen and Heard Pro. And that's quite a nice option, just, in case you want to arrange things, I don't know, for different occasions or different communication opportunities. So it might be that you want to set up a communication book for visiting grandparents, then you can just assemble the scenes that you want to have ready for that occasion. And those scenes might also sit in other books. So this is just another sort of way of accessing that content. And as I said, for printing it out for a low-tech book is really one of the nice options that you have here. You can also share the scenes directly. So if I had made a scene about springtime, I could take that scene and then share it with Annie, and Annie could use that on her device as well if she also had Seen and Heard Pro. And one of the things actually that we're going to launch in about a week is a scene library on our website, where you'll be able to download more examples of some of the ways you can use Seen and Heard. And the feedback we've had over the years from the original Seen and Heard, but also Seen and Heard Pro, is that clinicians and educators really enjoy having examples at their disposal to either explain how visual scenes work, because they're a little bit abstract sometimes without having the app in front of you, to people, to stakeholders, funders, families. So that's quite useful. But also some of the scenes will be useful to people in and of themselves as well. The other big feature, which is not new but came out when we launched Senior Herd Pro, is the transition to literacy feature. So you're able to embed both decodable and sight reading words in hotspots to expose ASC users to the skills required for early literacy as well. So that again came out of the work that we did with the RERC with Janice Light, and it has been added into Senior Herd Pro. So you're able to use that within, and again, it's a setting. You could have it across the whole app if you wanted to, or you could have specific scenes that are just related to transition to literacy, and we could have it just on the 1 or 2 scenes that you wanted to, and you can toggle that off if you don't need it as well. So that's a little bit about Seen and Heard Pro, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Predictable, and then hand back to Annie after that. So Predictable is now what's 2025, 14 years old. It launched in January 2011, and is our text-based AAC app. Predictable has evolved over those 14 years. We're now on version 7, and that's, it's quite a journey from the original version, not just because of the work we've done, but because the technology has evolved in that time dramatically. Predictable enables you to use a keyboard-based app to type your message and have it spoken aloud. Now that sounds really simple, but what we try to do is to include accessibility features and efficiencies to enable that to happen as quickly and easily as possible, because it's particularly used by people with motor speech difficulties who are potentially quite likely to have other motor difficulties that would make typing on a keyboard either slower or more challenging than it may have been before. So that's really the goal for Predictable, to make it fast and to keep people in the conversation. So to build in lots of ways for them to get their message across quickly, but to try to reduce the likelihood of interruptions or people losing focus on what you're saying while you're composing your message. So that we do through having a big phrase bank of content that you can have easy access to, that you want to pre-program ahead of time. We have the floor holding feature where you can schedule for little messages to come up as you're typing to say, hey, I'm still typing. So somebody maintains their attention, hopefully, and to also really benefit from the sophisticated word prediction, which learns your pattern of use and should really aid in the speed of typing. So all that happens alongside having the app be fully accessible via 1 or 2 switches. The whole screen is a switch, face gestures, head tracking, eye tracking, whatever it is, the means that by which you're able to access the app, you can use Predictable, and that's really our goal. So to make that journey as simple as it can be, regardless of the way you're accessing it. So we launched version 7 not that long ago, and some of the big features that came out in version 7 and in the little iterations after 7 that are interesting, probably for everybody, that we have a translate feature. And so that works like Google Translate. And so that's nice, because we often had requests from people saying, well, I want to I have a carer who's coming into the house who doesn't speak the language I speak. I want to be able to communicate with them. So just like, I might pick up Google Translate to talk to someone whose language I didn't speak, somebody using Predictable can also do that now. And that's in addition to the 45 languages that Predictable is now available in. It's available either in the core languages, we have 11 of those as isolated apps in the App Store, or within English, you're able to toggle into these secondary languages. And that includes languages like Arabic, Urdu, a lot of South Asian, in Indian languages, Southeast Asian languages, and that Russian, what else? Other Baltic languages as well. So that enable, again, either providing people who are bilingual or multilingual the ability to access Predictable in all of their languages, or particularly for people for whom there aren't apps in, say, Farsi or Tamil, that they're able to access Predictable in their first language as well. So that was a big aspect of Predictable 7. We also integrated ChatGPT, and really that's been interesting to watch how people are using it, and they're using it probably just like everybody else does. So, just like my kids might say to me, I can't think of a question now, Mum, what's the difference between a cumulus cloud and a nimbus cloud? And I don't know, so I asked ChatGPT. And so that can come up in Predictable, and then I can edit that to speak it out, or I can, and it will indicate it's been authored by ChatGPT, so the person themselves can edit that and use that to formulate what they want to say as well. People are using for all sorts of things. I mean, jokes, like me, I can't ever think of a joke on the spot, sort of thing that you might ask ChatGPT. That's people who use Predictable also using it that way. We have a range of voices that it's available with, both offline and online, as well as being compatible with all the major voice banking providers, Acapella, Model Talker, Speak Unique, VoiceKeeper. And then very recently, so towards the end of last year, with 11 Labs. So that integration is possible in Predictable, which is good. And we last week announced that you can also now request, health professionals can request for their clients an 11 Labs voice for free through Predictable as well. So Annie's the expert on that. So if you've got questions on that, we can help with that. And then finally, another feature which is quite neat, I think, is the symbol prediction, which was new. And that really came about because people were wanting to potentially transition from a symbol-based, grid-based app into something like Predictable, because let's say as a child or an adolescent was developing literacy skills, but maybe not quite ready for a full keyboard app. So the option for simple prediction enables users to perhaps be supported in their word identification and those literacy skills to use a text-based app and to move on to that. So in the prediction strip, which is cycling around in all those different languages, another option is that you can see it with the symbols in the text box and in the prediction window as well. Okay, I'm going to pause there and try and answer some questions that I can see popping up in the chat, and then I will hand back to Annie. Let me have a little look.
Yeah, I'll try and share.
Okay, so I know that Chandra's asked if anybody else uses this sort of software in their practice and if they had any experience or feedback in regards to that. So I don't know if people have responded. And that Seen and Heard is also available in the OTAP library for trials. So people are able to access it through there. And we're also happy to support people to try it. And Seen and Heard, by the way, has another version, which is a subscription-based version. So you can also trial it in that version as well. Somebody asked, can it be added remotely or oh, that's about the loan library. Okay, fine. Makes sense. And then we were talking about the 11 labs voices being amazing, which they certainly are. And I think that's really been exciting to see how people have been able to use the voices in Predictable, and we're happy with even trying to close the loop by people can request the voices in the app now. So really getting it out to more people to access. So that's exciting as well. Okay, I am going to hand over to Annie, and I'm putting her on the spot here, but I'm sure she'll be fine with that. Are you happy to share your screen, Annie, if I stop?
Can you? I think I am. If anyone
Okay,
wants.
I'll stop sharing.
Can you just let me know if you can see my
Yes,
screen?
we can see Annie's screen.
Okay, perfect. So I will just go through the simplest journey of VocaQuest. So sort of the main journey. You can see that I have quite a lot of clients here. I obviously do a lot of testing, so they're not necessarily named or the goals be particularly logical. But to add a new client, you sorry, let me go over this. You add an identifier, so this could be their name, or if you want to keep it a bit more private, you can choose anything you would like here. Birth month and birth year, there are only a couple of activities which it's useful for us to know the age, so we can predict sort of where sort of baseline progress should be. Therapy plan end date, so that we can track the progress against it. You can choose different themes for the games. So if the sort of main VocaQuest theme that you saw on the games that I was showing earlier is a bit too much, the other themes are a bit simpler. So you can have just a white background, some blue clouds, or a rainbow. You can change the avatar, which is what will be used on the games, and also what's shown on the certificates. And then here is the client dashboard access. So this is the login for the user themselves to the more child-friendly login. This is available later as well, so you don't have to save this now. So if I click create client, I'll be taken straight to the goals. You don't have to set up goals, but we bring you here first just as a reminder. So you can scroll through all of the goals that we have. You can type in to find one, so be initial if that's what I would like to set the goal as. You can change the accuracy target. So if you want the goal to be achieved, if they achieve 60% 3 times in a row, you can change it to that. And then I can click activities here to filter the activity library by that be initial that I was looking at. So you can see there's a load of coloring minimal pairs activities. There's a load of flashcards, memory match, more minimal pairs, and so on and so on. And so any of these will be attached to that be initial goal. As you can see here, you can do filters on the side. So I can filter by any of the therapy approaches to narrow it down a bit. Because as you can see, there are 190 results for the be initial search. So any of these I could sort by and then start. Once you find an activity here which you like the look of, so if I go on to a memory match, once I click it, you can see that there are options in the bottom. So print, this is only available on web, not on iPad, just because of technical challenges of printing. So you can print that activity if you don't want to do it digitally. You can add it to the therapy plan for later. So this means it will also be sent through to the client login for them to look at if they log in first. Or you can plan for another session, or you can choose to start now. There's always a screen where you can narrow down a few options. So if you want to make it simpler, harder, these options are different for the different activities. And then I can confirm and start now if I would like. I will add it to the therapy plan for now, just so that I can show you what that looks like. So if I go back, this is my main page for the client that I created, Lisa. And you can see that there is a therapy plan here. So I added the memory match B initial, so this is now in upcoming on this list. And then there are 4 suggested activities all relating to initial B. So these will also be sent through to the client dashboard so that the client never runs out of activities to practice. Yeah, so that is the therapy plan. This will also show any historical activities that you've completed through your account or theirs. So if I choose to play this one now quickly, there are some brief instructions. Pick a card. I'd have to say bin, mark the pronunciation, and then choose, try and find the other card. I'll just quickly complete this so there's something to show on the report. And then I'll mark one incorrectly as well. And then there's a quick celebration screen for completing the activity. And then this is the report. So you can add any notes. You can also use a phonetic keyboard if you want to describe some pronunciation. And then you'll get a rundown of each question in the activity and the answer and the score. You can start the next activity in the therapy plan immediately if you would like, or you can take yourself back to the activity library to find another question. You can also download the report if you'd like to store it, but it will be available from the therapy plan at any point. So you can see that memory match is now historical, and by clicking here, I can click back to that report. So in the same way as that's available because I've just done it, if you send it through to the client dashboard, you will also be able to see all of their reports here. To access the studio, which I was talking about earlier, if you go back to the caseload, this is where you can find that. So you have create activity, editing and deleting them, creating a bundle, and editing and deleting a bundle. If I just show you how to create quick flashcard activity, so it's just vocabulary. I will choose flashcards from here, and I will do it with coloring. I can then customize the content, so I can add an image. I can upload this from my device, take a photo, or go through to the asset library, which has all of the images I've ever uploaded, as well as our set all of our images that are available. You can also search through all of our symbols as well. So you find something that you would like. I do an orange. You can then record your audio production if you would like, or if you just type in the word, that will be pronounced by the text-to-speech. You can preview to see how it will look in the app.
Orange.
And then you can add as many items as you want and complete when done. You can reshuffle the order. And then once you're done, you can access that activity from within the activity library. So yeah, that's a bit of a deeper run through about FocusQuest. If there is any questions, go ahead to ask.
I know I would love to see some of the other activities.
Yep, I can do that. Sorry, I'm just stuck on the
And if you guys have questions, please ask, what would you guys like to see? And Joy says that you could create the weekly spelling list. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really the benefit is you've got lots of these templates that are already there, but the content is easy to add. So if you wanted to, say you wanted to maybe, and if you did like a spinner game and we add in cycles, not in cycles, in studio, and we could, that's exactly where you could add in the spelling list, or Annie can just maybe show you maybe irregular plurals or whatever you like on there to give you a bit of an idea how spinners work.
Yep, we can go through that one. If there are any other activities that people would like to see, let me know and I can show them. So with the
Tap
spinner,
the wheel to spin.
you can spin the wheel, it will land.
Fill in the blank.
This is actually the same irregular plurals as showed earlier, but there are lots of questions that you can combo this with. So this can be used with flashcards, minimal pairs, quizzes. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, and you could have the text there, so you could pretty quickly, if the spelling list was like my son's last week was when CH makes an S sound, like he had words like champagne and chalet. That was the spelling list, which was quite entertaining. But that could be they could be the words, and you can show them in text around the spinner, and so that each time that comes round, you could be presented with the spelling list. Or you could do the spelling list, for example, in the word search or in coloring, because it will present it each time. And you don't need to make that deck of that say those 10 words of spelling once, and then you can deliver that through most of the games that are available, like memory, like you saw, and just increase those exposures. If you want to do I was thinking coloring is quite a nice option too to show.
So I'll do a categories activity. My favorite one is this space.
Yeah, so it could be some language goals. It could be about, in some ways, in this way, you're doing
Color in a shape with your selected color.
Oh, you're really doing a sorting activity, sorry. Sorting activity or a discrimination activity where you're choosing between the categories with the coloring each time. So you've got that flexibility for it to be anything, and that's the idea. With that, and you could have multiple characters. We've got two here, for example, for this activity, and so the two different colors. But you can choose multiple colors, and this can be and this is a good one for printing out as well. So you're able to use it that way.
Are you guys able to show us how to change the voice or the language or those sorts of options?
So if you return to the caseload and go to account, and then settings on the side panel, you can change between American and British English, and you can choose the text-to-speech voice. So this will be depending on the device that you're on. We'll just pull through what's available. So these are, I think, the Chrome ones that are available. But on an iPad, they would be all the Apple voices for you to choose from.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways that it can be personalized, and as you saw, you can Annie's got it on American English, so the spelling will be in the content. It should be American, or if you see anything that's not, you can let us know. And that's quite a useful way to use it. Annie, I wonder if you can just show the a couple of the colorful semantics options. As I was saying earlier, that's really it's an approach very widely used across British schools and Australian schools as well, designed as a way of using semantics to support sentence structure rather than it being a syntactic approach. And there are multiple ways in which you can use colorful semantics. The core way is usually building a sentence where you describe a picture, but we've got a whole lot of other ways to reinforce that. And actually some of these are really nice, even if you're not familiar with the colorful semantics approach, but you're able to, for example, sort into parts of speech or into grammatical functions as well, because they just fit in that means. So people post in the post boxes all the what's and the verbs, and so this is quite a neat way to work on sentence building, semantics, but also underlying that you've also got the syntactical structures that you're targeting here as well, and the photos that we use in this approach. So you've got a massive photo library of very cosmopolitan, multicultural photos of people doing all sorts of activities, older people, younger people, and then you'll describe what they're doing in that photo. So it might be, the grandparents are walking where at the beach, so you build the sentence in that way. The other benefit is you can really build on that and make it more complex by making sentences longer and adding more components to that as well. So yeah, super flexible, and it's very widely used across the UK. I know it's less so used in the US, but it's certainly something that I think is easily picked up, even without having the background to the approach as well. So loads of different options there. See, there's a couple of questions I can.
Programs or games are editable, and you can essentially create activities to follow along the class curriculum. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Interesting. My mom actually uses VocalQuest. She's a teacher, and she creates a load of color semantics activities depending on the topics that they're on. So, for example, like farm, I think is the current topic they're working on. And yeah, so you can absolutely edit them.
And you can use them on the big smart boards. And I know Annie's mum, they do that, used on the big boards. But you can also be used on individual devices across the class as well, or one-to-one, or there's no reason why you can't use it across the classroom. You could print out the worksheets for everybody based on that as well. So it's really designed to be flexible with enough content in there, but freedom to really take it and use it as you need it.
Is there a printable file of predictable to use as a low-tech backup?
Yes, I think we do have somewhere on our website, Annie. If we haven't, we can double check. We used to have one. We do have a printout of the keyboard page. I think in one of our blogs, maybe I'm feeling like it's 2 or 3 years ago, I remember writing that blog and popping a screenshot of predictable. But you could also do that if you have predictable, you can just screenshot on the iPad itself and do that, because it's text-based. I suppose the keyboard is the key thing. I think I have another version where I've sort of made the keyboard even even bigger, or took out the other aspects that you don't really need when you're just typing on a piece of paper. And we have another version of the keyboard which is kind of set up for partner assisted scanning. If someone was to support somebody using it that way, we have that on predictable if that's what they're familiar with. But you could, in theory, print that version out as well as a screenshot. Okay, there was an example of the transition to literacy and seen and heard. Is this similar or related to all the curriculum? Okay, yeah. So certainly, within seen and heard itself, or do you mean the literacy activities in VocalQuest or the literacy activities in seen and heard?
Deborah, would you like to unmute and ask your question? I want to make sure that we get this one. I know she mentioned that briefly. Yeah, that question was from Deborah Lesher.
Okay.
About seen and heard specifically.
Okay.
So if you have, if we have a little bit of time, we can go back to that and maybe talk about that for a minute.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so while we're asking that, so seen and heard has the ability to do the transition to literacy feature. And essentially what that entails is if you have any photo, like if it was my cup, I would be able to put a hotspot over the item that I wanted to introduce the written or the phonemic, the graphemic, sorry, support for. So I would input, let's say I wanted to put cup as my target word in transition to literacy for this client. Then what I would do in the hotspot is I can phoneme by phoneme either. I can record that. So I would add in the 3 different phonemes that build cup, put, and then I can do. I would also do a recording where I really probably exaggerated the synthesizing of that with cup, and in parallel, what would happen then is when the child tapped on cup, up would come the letters fading through, or highlighting, I should say, the C, the U, and then the P, and alongside that would be each of the phonemes would be produced in that time, so that you're able to, the person is able to receive that multimodal input to expose them to that. So there's quite a lot of literature, again, coming out of the Janice Light's team, really looking at how transition to literacy is being used with a range of children at different ages and with different starting points to the literacy. And I can certainly send over to Chandra afterwards some of the references about that. I was reading something earlier this week that had come out early 2025. So often it's preschoolers, but also children with a range of developmental challenges where this is an opportunity to potentially expose them to these really early skills in decoding for literacy. So the content that you put in is really flexible. I mean, there's not a program in there or a curriculum in there coming from us within Seen and Heard. It's really would be client goal led, I think, or class led if you're using it at a class level, to identify what those targets would be and where you'd start. You can also use it with non-decodable words, so you can add in content using the transition to literacy feature, where again bring up the word. It won't break it down into its phoneme, but you'll see the word come up on the hotspot as well. So it's really an opportunity to bring literacy exposure through an AAC app. So yeah, it's an interesting. If anybody does want to try out Seen and Heard or Predictable or VocaQuest, you can let Annie and I know, and we can try and set that up for you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't unmute. This is Deborah.
No problem.
And would you ladies please put your contact information in the chat for the
Absolutely,
audience so they can get a hold of you?
We can certainly do that. And Annie and I, we're happy to also, if you want access for a little while, or if you're doing training or evaluations, we're happy to support you with access to that. So you can contact myself or Annie, and we'll do that. We also, for example, we're happy. We're a very, very small company, so we don't have reps out in every state. We don't have reps at all. And so what we do offer, though, is sort of like office hours, and we're able to problem solve and jump on a call with clinicians and educators and families, and try and either troubleshoot or give suggestions on how to optimize the setups and things like that for the AAC apps, but also for VocaQuest. We're happy to do that as well. If you're thinking, I wonder if you can do this, and we probably, someone's already asked, and Annie's already come up with the idea of how to do it. So we're very happy to do that. And we're available. If you're happy to do it in your early morning, we're happy to do it at the end of our day here in London. So, we're that's often a really good way to get an overview of something and think about how it might work for your clients or your students.
So talking about support, do you guys have training videos, examples on your website? Or I think Annie mentioned YouTube. You guys have videos on YouTube?
Absolutely. So yeah, we have a load of YouTube videos on all of the apps available. We link them from our FAQs as well and on our website, so you're able to access that. And if someone has a query, that often means that we then generate a video to walk someone through that. So we try and use those as well on YouTube so that somebody else can access that as well. So yeah, absolutely, it's a very large library of YouTube videos available to look through. But if we don't answer your question with that, as I said, we're happy to either make you a video of how to do something, or we're happy to, happy either way.
Anybody else have any other questions? Is there anything in here that you can think of that you want to see while we have them at our disposal? I see there's a support button right up in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got any questions while you're in there, and you might be able to tap on it now and show you what comes up. But yeah, you're able to access some of the FAQs and support. And yeah, if you have questions, that comes through. So yeah, a whole lot of ways to get the help you need, including that might be download the physical user guide or set up a training session. They're all bookable through that support little portal as well.
Is there a limit to how many clients you can have?
I think it's 30, isn't it?
30 at one time,
Yeah.
but you can archive clients. So if you want to store the data, but you don't want to delete anything, you can archive and unarchive as you're using. So, yeah, 30 is the max, but you can have more if you archive a couple as well.
Interesting. Okay. So I am curious from the audience, do any of you use software like this currently? No? Julie says no. I know that data is such a huge, huge thing. And so that's why I really wanted to bring VocaQuest in front of you guys, because I know we do a lot of, manual tracking. And we talked in our last session about programs and data. And so I feel like this could be helpful. Yes, of course, Kelly doesn't have individual clients, but has worked with people who use predictable or met people. And then you have an EI program that uses seen and heard, early intervention program. And I've heard that the seen and heard and those types of programs are really great with a lot of children who are autistic, particularly for transition times or new activities.
Yeah, and I think that's really, I mean, the thing that I usually get excited about with Seen and Heard is that you really can use it to cover most bases, and especially on the fly, or when you're thinking, maybe a bit of a challenge comes up in the day, or a child needs more support in a certain way. Then Seen and Heard's pretty unintimidating for anybody to pick up the iPad, take a photo, draw a big circle around what it is, and then maybe it's a choice. What is it that you'd like to do? Do you want to have have time to have quiet time over here or quiet time over there? It might be two parts of the room or two activities, or it might be also bringing up family photos. Is it that you want to talk about mum? Is it okay, let's bring up a family photo and talk about that. Or it's used sort of school home communication, so I can tell you what I did on my weekend, and then my parents could send that into school. School can then use that to support me talking about my weekend, and vice versa. Come home from school and say, oh, here's what I did. This, and the scene could be from a moment in the afternoon when there was an activity on or a class. So it's about, I think, communicating about the routine and the regular things that happen in someone's day and environment, but also it can be about the special things, and they might be the things you save in a folder: birthdays or celebrations or visits to grandparents or trips somewhere, or a funny story, that you want to repeat over and over, or have as something up your sleeve that you can use. So seniorhood really does, is used in very many ways by people to support communication across the lifespan, from really young. There's evidence of preschoolers through to people with aphasia, people with primary progressive aphasia, communications for people with dementia. So it's absolutely used across the lifespan. And I think the flexibility, and it's just sort of designed to be done that way. So we've not made it very childish, but it's child friendly. We've not made it, we've not added labels on any of our buttons so that it can be used very quickly by someone who doesn't speak English. It's been designed sort of with that big picture in mind.
And Joy, would you like to unmute and ask your question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. I was just trying to type it in and I was like, it's going to take a minute. So my approach, I'm the assistive technology liaison for a huge district, well, like 7 counties in Oregon. And so I cover this whole thing, and my whole focus is like whole classroom and inclusion, bridging that gap between equity and inclusion in education. And so listening to some of this, my vision of this in the whole classroom would be, how teachers are using the overhead and they're doing the big smart boards and all of that. And I heard, did you mention like 30 people, 30 accounts on the program? So in the whole classroom setting, to bridge that gap where that student feels equitable in the inclusion of the teaching, a lot of our school districts, every student has their own iPad. So like the teacher could do a whole unit using this program, do the unit on science, and then the kids are navigating that with this program. And I just had this huge vision of that inclusion. And so I just had to share, because make sure that was something that would be possible. Like let's say we have a 3rd grade teacher, she gets on this program, she's using it, and she wants to include that autistic student or that nonverbal student who can then participate through this app with the whole class and feel on that equal plane of involvement in that classroom. Is that kind of something that could be done?
Absolutely. I think with VocaQuest, like you said, say it was you wanted to cover the same science concepts, you can really differentiate, I think, that content for the different levels in the classroom, and support people with different goals, and some shared goals potentially in VocaQuest for sure. That would be completely possible, and you could track each of those children separately if you needed to. That would be certainly doable, and you might you could move those goals up and down as things went on. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that working really nicely.
Is there a way for like a whole group presentation, or is this really geared individually?
For VocaQuest, so it's really sort of been designed for one-to-one from the outset is how it's been designed. But absolutely, like I know, as I said, Annie's mum, she uses it across the classroom, and so that would certainly be fine, and it's used on smart boards or
Okay.
yeah, shared that way as well. So that would be doable.
Thank you. Yeah. I have sometimes I run across teachers who are looking for ways to make it more equitable in the way that they're including the education piece for each session. And so I like to have things in my arsenal to say, okay, well, this will fit right into your program. This is going to be perfect for your second grade, third grade, each one of those things. And so I just want to have the information to be able to present to them.
Yep. And
Okay,
if you want
thank you.
to have access, we can set you up with it so you can have a bit more of a look through and
Yeah.
a bit of play. We can certainly
Oh,
facilitate.
I'd love that if I could get some. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you let Annie or I know, we can set that up.
Perfect.
Yeah, with VocaQuest, you can, if you sign up, there's a 3-month trial. So it's very easy to get that even without us. But we
Yeah.
can provide if needed. So